Hey guys, wanted to do a video here to show the installation of the half doors on a 2022 Can-Am Defender Lone Star Edition Max Cab. I ordered these. They're the Can-Am doors, and the instructions are okay, but I went ahead and did this side first so that I'd have a little bit of experience to maybe help you guys better understand what I'm doing. So I'm gonna show you how this works, and feel free to reach out to me with questions. Let me take you over here and show you what I've got. Got everything unpackaged and laid out for you. That's your rear door, and then your front door. All the parts that go with it. You can see all of your hardware here. I've got it all separated into piles, which I found to be a little bit easier. These are your strike pins here, all the hinges for the doors, the tethers to not let the doors swing open too far, and then in this bag here is your nets and some stickers. I decided not to use the nets. I didn't see a reason for it, and I thought it was a little bit cleaner install. So this is what they look like when they're done, and I will walk you through the install on the other side. All right guys, so these do not come with instructions, but if you go to instructions.brp.com, you can pull up instructions for any of their accessories, and they're lengthy and they're decent, and they show you, blown up views of each door and how they go together, and they give you step-by-step directions. All right, let me show you. I've got those M 1.25 at 25 millimeter screws. See, the screw goes in this direction, nuts on the inside, both locations. Same thing down here. They want you to have this as flush as you can make it. The two pieces of steel, it will affect how tight your door shuts later in the installation. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to install this bar, and they want you to put one screw here and a longer screw here, and there's a nut already welded on the back side of this. Now this screw, since I'm not putting the nets on, I'm going to go ahead and put this nut or this bolt and nut in now. If you're putting the nets in, you want to wait to put that one in till later. Okay, you can see, got one bolt that way, one that way, nuts are on the inside, and then this is that longer bolt that we had two of that goes into a already welded on nut on the other side. All right, couple things I want to show you. First of all, I went back and read the instructions and realized I had forgot there's supposed to be a lock washer on this longer bolt that goes through there. That's a 1.25 by 40 millimeter. That one requires a lock nut. That's the only one. The other thing I want to tell you, getting these flush is very difficult. I struggled with that on the other side, and so this time what I did, I came back over here to adjust this, and I used a quick clamp, and I was able to, the plastic will separate from the steel. It's just like you can pry them apart, and you can slip that quick grip under here or any kind of a clamp, and you can try to make that steel so that it's flush with one another, and that's going to go a long way to helping you down the road. Just wanted to give you that little tidbit. Also, tools that I'm using. This is a T40. This T40 fits those 1.25 by 25 millimeter screws that we're using for the majority of the project, and a 13 millimeter wrench works great also. This is a ratcheting closed end on this side, which is helpful. Something else we're going to get into here in a little bit is a T30. That's to remove the old hardware, the old netting and whatnot. I used a pair of needle nose pliers at one point and a flathead screwdriver. I got another 13 millimeter wrench out just for in certain situations it's nice to have two of them. I believe this is a T15 that I'm using, and I can't remember where I used it, but we'll come across it later. And then there's some other wrenches and whatnot here that they called out for. Honestly, I don't think I used any of the tools that they called out for in the instruction manual. So just trying to help you with what I'm using. These Allen wrenches were called out for in their instruction manual. I did not use them once. The 17 millimeter and 15 millimeter, never used them. May have used the 10 millimeter. I don't remember 100%. Then there was a couple of sockets they wanted us to have. This one here, I believe, is a 13 millimeter. I was using that in place of a wrench in places. So anyway, just wanted to give you a heads up on the tools that I'm using. So at this point, we're going to do the exact same thing that we've done with the rear door to the front door. They install exactly the same way. So we're going to go ahead and get that done. All right, guys, we have both doors assembled at this point. You can see I've done the same thing here. Got the two bolts here in the shoulder bar. You have the one longer bolt here, a lock nut or a lock washer, and then you have your three bolts here, here, and here, and you have this tether that needs to be there. Don't forget about it. And now it's time to go ahead and put the hinges on. We'll get set up and I'll show you that. All right, guys, I want to take a second to show you this because I ran into this on the other side. See these holes? See how they're not lining up with the holes on the other side 100%. We have everything lined up with the bolts, so technically they should be lining up. You can see them there also. So what I did was took a utility knife on the other side, and I actually just carved the plastic out, cut the plastic to line up with the steel holes on the other side. Double check before you do that to make sure your hinges are going to cover everything, but in most cases they will, and I've already checked this. So I'm not sure why. I don't know if the CNC machine that cut this out just glitched or what happened, but I ran into this on the other side as well. All right, so I've got the hinges put on these doors. Show you what I'm dealing with here. There's the first hinge, and actually we're going to end up having to, what I was showing you earlier, that hole is exposed and it shouldn't be. And actually this panel, I did not have to do anything to it. It was already lined up. So we'll end up having to probably slide that hinge over, and hopefully that'll work out, because what they want you to do, and it looks like I am off center a little bit, they want you to have these in the center of the slots. It leaves room for adjustment later, but I'll go ahead and slide that over to make sure I'm covered. And then same deal up here. You can see I've got those right in the center. These are those same 1.25 millimeter by 25 millimeter bolts with the M8 nylon nuts, and the same ones we've been using. Same deal here. You can see the style here, the way that it's facing. It'll only go one way to make the holes line up. The top hinge and the bottom hinge are the exact same for both doors. So you just do the exact same thing with both doors, and then once that step's done, we'll move on to the next. All right, so the next step is going to be to remove all of the old hardware. We have to take this latch off. I believe that might be where that T15 came into play that I was showing you earlier. These mirrors were on here. My dealer had put them on. Those mirrors are not going to be able to be there for the door install. Actually, I'll show you since we're talking about it. There is, if you take this out, and if you look on the back side, there's a hole there and a hole there, and you can actually bolt the mirrors back through and they'll be connected to the door instead of the frame. That's for that style of mirror. Now they make another style, and I'm not sure yet if I'm going to put these mirrors back on or if I'm going to order the other style, and I'm not sure how they connect either, so I have to look into that. So need to take that off. We need to get the mirror off of there, and then we need to come down here. These are T30s. We have to take all of this. We've got one hiding back here, which we'll get to. We got to take this off up here and this off up here, and then we need to take this bolt out. Don't lose any of this hardware. Hang on to it. And then you got one here, one here, one here, and one here. There's a total of 5 of them. We're going to take those out, and then this piece of plastic will come out. I would recommend, before we do that, that you go ahead and take your knife and cut this out, because it needs to happen, and it's a lot easier to do when this is secured in place. After that is done, you're going to get the plastic off. Then you're going to have 2 bolts in the back side of this shoulder bar that have to come out, and then you have a screw here and a screw here. If this seat is out of the way, if you give it a tug, oh, I'm lying to you, it doesn't work on the driver's side. It works on all of the other seats. The back of this seat, I don't believe, comes out. So you'll have to work around this one. On the other one, the seats actually, they just pull, and then you can pick up on them. And you'll notice there's little hooks back here on the back. That's all there is to the backs of these seats. You can get them out of the way, and then it's a little easier to get at, like that screw right there that's holding the shoulder bar, and some of these other ones up here that you need to get off. So we also need to take this shoulder bar off. We need to take this plastic off. If we open this up, there's going to be 2 like little rivets here. You can use a pair of needle nose to pull the center of it out, and then they'll come out, or you can use a flathead screwdriver and pry them out, and then they'll come out. So we need to get all of that out of the way, and then we'll move on to installing the hinges on the machine. The screws that are down here, we want to take them out. We want to put them right back in. Those holes are not going to get used for anything. And we want to fill this hole. Let's take a pull out the backside of this shoulder bar. Use that extension. Okay, that's it. Alright, so what we're doing now is putting on the bottom hinges, which are these guys. And they're gonna go on this direction. This is the top, this is the bottom. You got two of the same screws we've been using, the 1.25 by 25 with I slid a lock washer on first and then a fender washer on second. It's these right here, those washers, these lock washers. So then we'll take this over, I'll show you where we put it. I've already put this one on. You can see the orientation of it, and you just want to again try to put the screws in the center of the slots. You're probably going to adjust it later anyway. The other one is going to hang right from here like so. We get that put on, then we have to take that loose up there, and then the other hinge will fasten right there in those two holes. By the way, because I don't think I told you, this was a T15 here, these two screws. The two that took out the latch that was in here were just T30s. Just wanted to let you know that. All right, next we have this hinge, which is for the front door, and this larger one is for the back door. These are the upper hinges. Two screws for each one, set up the same way with the lock washers and the fender washers. That guy sits right in there. So I have the JL Audio roof on my Can-Am. So mine may be slightly different than yours, but I have this aluminum plate right here. I left it in place on the other side. When you take the two screws out, it's gonna wanna fall out. I just held it back up there, ran the screws back through the hinge and through that, and I used the new screws that came with the doors, but it's kind of up to you whether you leave that plate or not. I suppose you don't have to. I suppose the hinge takes the place of it. I just wanted to leave it there because it was already there. Go ahead and finish putting this hinge on, and then we'll move on to the next step. All right, guys, so at this point you got your hinges secured here and here and here and here. Now you grab two of the hinge pins and you set the door up in place. I find that I can kind of grab it with one hand and hang on to it, set it up on top of this hinge, drop a pin, and then I can line it up. Now in this case, I had the hinges centered, as I mentioned, and this wouldn't come up underneath this. So the hinge on the door would not fit underneath the hinge that was fastened to the Can-Am. So I took these two screws loose, I shifted the hinge up on the frame, and I was able to drop the pin down in. I haven't tightened them yet because I'm still looking it over, but a couple things you can look at. There's a profile here. You can see if that kind of lines up with your door. And you want to make sure you got some space underneath here, that it's not rubbing. You also want to make sure it's not rubbing up here. And then if you're good in both locations and your hinges are tight together, then you can tighten these up if they're not already tight. If you have a gap between the hinges here or here, then you'll want to kind of try to push them together. And you also, again, want to try to make sure that your spacing is good under here. So I'm good up and down, so I'm going to go ahead and tighten that upper hinge, and then we're good that way. The next thing you want to look at is your spacing left to right, front to back. And you want to see, what's your spacing look like everywhere. I'm binding a little bit back here. I'm going to try to shift this over slightly. To do that, we're going to loosen these three screws, and we can loosen these two screws that are going through the door, and then we can shift the door over and then tighten those back up, make our final adjustments, and then we're going to do the exact same thing with the back door, and then we'll move on. Let me get the back door done. All right, guys, I spent probably about 20 minutes, and I loosened these bolts and these and these and these, and I was able to get both of these doors to where I'm happy with the reveal all the way around. I'm happy with the way things are lining up. This one binds a little bit, which means when you push in on this, everything's nice and tight, which I think over time it might kind of hold its position, which I'm okay with. On the opposite, both doors are actually doing that slightly. On the other side, I had the opposite problem where when you push the top tight, this was a little bit loose down here. It wasn't all the way in. And I tried to mess around with that frame in this area where it talked about in the directions, and I only had a little bit of success. So it's a little wonky, but they're flimsy doors compared to like a car door. So I think it kind of is what it is. Next thing to do is put the strike pins in to catch these. They'll go in here. I'll get started on that and then I'll show you what I'm doing. Okay, so this is your strike plate for this one. It actually slides inside of here, and then you're gonna have 2 bolts that go through there, the M 1.25 by 25s. You're gonna put those on, and then when we're done with that, we'll put the strike pin on. I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and then I'll show you. All right, show you what I've done here. This door is now latching. So I slid that up in there, as I said, 2 of these in, and then this is your strike plate, or your strike pin, and you just stick one of the M8 nylon washers on, or nuts on the back. And then I'll tell you the trick that I have figured out is that if you put some weight on this and you bend it inward, you'll get a very nice, it's actually maybe bent slightly too far, which is why it's not catching easily, but I think over time it's gonna, I mean, it'll shut. It's not difficult to do. It's just, it may not catch on its own, but there's no rattle at all. This is sucked in nice and tight. That's the way I want it, so that I don't have a rattle when I'm driving down the road. I've messed with this side a little bit, and I've got it also now in pretty good shape. So it was rattling before, and I messed around with it, and I bent it inward slightly. You got to be careful you don't overdo it, but that definitely helps. All right, and then you can adjust this pin up and down, because that's a slot there. So you can go up and down with this, as well as these are slots here, so this can go up and down. So you have a lot of adjustment for up and down. You just don't really have any adjustment for in and out, which is why I bent it a little bit. All right, let's go back here. Let me show you this. This is that other strike plate. It slides in behind here. You can see, and this is an M125 25. This is a regular screw that we've been using. There's one that goes here and one that goes here, and those are smaller. Those are 1.0 by 25 millimeter, I believe. And they actually want a lock washer with them. Now, this screw is the one that I took out of there that used to hold the latch on, the plastic latch. I'm just using it because it's easy for me to get started. So what I do is I slide this in, I put this one in just to pin it, and I put that one in just to pin it. So now it's in its place. Now you actually have to notch this plastic, which you can do with a utility knife. That's how I've done everything else. Use your patience and just sturdy yourself so you don't slip and mar it up. But you're just gonna have to come in and you're gonna have to make a little bit of a square notch out of there. The instructions, unfortunately, give it to you in millimeters. So if you don't know what that is, I'm sure you can get online and find a conversion, but I just took a little bit out, tested it, took a little out, tested it. I just kind of kept going until I got it right, and it turned out really good on the other side. I can show you. So you actually end up notching this other one also when you put it back on. You'll have to notch it, but they're both notched, and you can see I've got it pretty tight through there. So just gotta take your time and just be careful with it, and you can just do it with a sharp utility knife. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that notch now. I just wanted to kind of show you what that was. So basically I'm just bending this plastic out of the way so that I can get this in, and then I'll slowly cut it and relieve it so it can come back into its place, and then I'll bolt this into place permanently and then put the strike on it, and then we'll be able to test this door. All right, guys, this is installed now. You can see it just runs out horizontally. I guess mine's not perfect, but it's got to run out fairly horizontal so it doesn't interfere. And then this door now shuts and latches. Again, this one's binding a little bit. It's not horrible to shut, but you can see where it's, so it's, I think once it sits in that position for a little while, I think it's going to probably take on a new shape, and it will get a little easier over time. the only other thing you can do is go back and try to adjust everything. Okay, so I also wanted to clarify that screw there also gets a lock washer. That one and both of those got lock washers. So, all right, next step. This piece of plastic that you cut the hole in earlier, it's going back in now. You gotta just put that little tab down in that hole, and then it goes on the outside. Sorry. It goes on the outside of that piece of plastic, and then you'll see it just kind of seats back in there, and you can see where the hinge now wants to come through there. So, but what has to happen now is we have to put another notch in this one. And again, they've told us in the instructions to already do this, but again, they're giving us measurements that I don't understand without trying to find a conversion chart. So I find this maybe a little bit easier. So again, we got that notch put in, and it turned out pretty nice and tight there. This will come over slightly probably when we line this hole back up with this hole. So we just need to get this over to where this hole and this hole can line up with one another. So I'm gonna go ahead and whittle away at that a little bit and get that one situated, and then we refasten that back in with the same fasteners that we took out of it. And then we need to come back here and get this rear plastic put in, which I don't believe there will be any cutting to do on it. It's just a matter of getting it situated in. So let me go ahead and get some of that done, and then I'll show you where we're at. Okay, so note that I didn't mention before, you got to take this door back off. You just got to lift it up off the hinges in order to put this plastic back in. I can show you. We got this back in, this plastic back in. You can see that I had to whittle away at it underneath, but you really can't see it unless you're looking for it. Got all 5 screws back in this piece of plastic. There's 3 coming up here. There's 1 here, and then you've got the 1 right here. Okay, and then I came over here and I put this piece of plastic back in. I did not take this door back off. It might have been easier, but I didn't do it. Put 1 screw back here. Put this rivet back in. Now this rivet up here, the second rivet, is hard to get to. What I did on the other side and what I just did on this side is I took this screw, I'm sorry, my other camera died. Took this screw all the way out. I took this screw about halfway out, and then I reached up inside of there and I set that rivet back in place, pushed it in, and then ran these 2 screws back in. I did that with the door latched in place, so it didn't really move at all. So not a big deal. At this point, everything you've done should be tight. All your screws for your doors, your hinges, everything should be tight. Your plastics should be back in. And we have to get our, okay. So I just put that door back on. Now we have to get the 2 nuts that go here and here, and here, and here. Now those nuts will only run on so far because they run out of threads. The nuts that we're using are these 4. They also have nylon inside of them, like a lock nut. So these are the ones we're using, as opposed to these ones with the fender or the flare built into it. We're not using those for this. So we'll go ahead and I just used 2 wrenches and went ahead and put these on. After we do that, the next step is going to be fastening our tether, which goes through here. It's going to be very difficult to do with this seat in place. The other side was much easier because you can take the back off of that seat like I did in the back here. It's very simple. And then you're supposed to run a screw through there into the first hole that was holding on this old shoulder bracket. However, I snapped that bolt off. I don't know if it was misthreaded or what, but it snapped right off when it was about halfway out. I was able to drill it out, but I don't think I'm going to be able to get the screw that's supposed to be used there to go in. So I may try to find a larger, like self-tapping screw that I can run through there, or I may end up having to take this plastic back off, drill it out, and run a bolt and have a bolt head and a nut on this side. There's room behind here for that, and it does run all the way through. I drilled it out from this side. So I'm gonna have to figure that one out. And then on this one, you can see that very first hole right there is the one that you run the hole through, or the screw through this tether and into that hole. After that's done, I need to flip these up. If you're happy with all your adjustments, you flip these up and you fold this tab down and you put a 1.25 millimeter by 25 millimeter. Same thing here. That keeps this flap up so you can't see anything, like any of your frame. Same thing happens on this one here. We'll go ahead and get those things done, and then I'll give you an update. Well, I think we're done. What I ended up doing was just using the second hole back instead of the first hole, so I probably lost, I want to say this thing, I mean, you can see it's not a big difference. I lost literally about an inch in there, so the door still swings open plenty far to get into. So I'm not overly concerned. Oh, that's interesting. This door swings out 90 degrees. That one's nowhere near 90 degrees, and it would not have been even if I would have used that first hole. So it's, you know, I feel like my takeaway from this whole thing after working with lots of products over the years is that, like, the quality is not like incredible, the attention to detail, that kind of thing. But that one is set up exactly the same, and this door doesn't go anywhere near 90 degrees, and the other one does. So I don't know, take it for what you will, but I'm not gonna worry about it. That kind of thing normally bugs me, but I guess I'm learning to lower my standards a little bit as I've worked on this thing. So don't get me wrong, I love it. It's a great machine. I'm happy with the way the doors look. I think they look fantastic. It really changes the look of the machine, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. I was a little concerned about whether I was gonna like it or not, but really think it turned out nice. And see, what else did I deal with? Something else for you to think about. So this latch pin over here broke on me, and I am gonna have to now get with my dealer. I called Can-Am and they told me I can't order parts for it, that I have to go to a dealer and order it from them. So that's kind of a pain in the butt, but I'm gonna stop in this week to the dealership and show you what I'm dealing with. This, I didn't even think I tightened it that much. I'm generally very careful, but you can see the bolt just snapped right off. And because it's a specialty piece, they put this round thing on here, I would assume so that when you're trying to climb out, you don't rack your leg on it and hurt yourself. So otherwise I'd probably just try to rig something up on my own and make it, but I'll probably go ahead and order that piece. For now, I'll put a bungee cord on it and it'll be fantastic. Just a little update here about a year later, now that I'm finally getting around to posting this video. This is the strike pin that I ended up making. What I did was took a bolt and I cut the head off of it, and then I just threaded one nut on, stuck it through, threaded another nut on, and it's been working great. I took a grinder, kind of rounded that off the best I could so it wouldn't hurt quite as bad if you hit it, but I just wanted to explain and show what I ended up doing there. That's it. Feel free to hit me up with any questions that you have, comments. Let me know what you think. Pretty excited about it. I actually just ordered a whole bunch of other accessories last evening. I got the fender flares on their way. I'm gonna put those on. I got the wind deflectors, the plastic wind deflectors that come up and down here. I also ordered the nets that go here to create like a little storage space for somebody. And then I ordered the bed rails that go up here. I'm still trying to determine what back bumper I want to put on. I have been going back and forth on using the Can-Am back bumper and the side protectors, but I haven't decided. There's some other really cool bumpers out there. So I'm trying to decide if I want to maybe do something different. But anyway, come on back and check out for other videos, because I will be doing videos on all the installs that I do on this. So I appreciate you watching. Like the video for me and hit the subscribe button, and you'll be able to get all my new content.